My name is Terry Reed. I'm the former FDA UDI Program Director, and I'm excited you're able to join us today. Just a few housekeeping rules. Please place your audio on mute during the presentation. Use the chat feature to ask questions. We'll be sure to address them either during the call or as part of a follow-up. Although we will include both US and EU details, we will predominantly focus on US regulations. Let's get started. Unique device identification is a relatively new label requirement placed on US device manufacturers to standardize how devices are identified. The US was the first to implement the UDI system following internationally agreed upon guidelines, but the EU and other jurisdictions will soon follow the US lead. This training will provide background on the UDI regulation, current status of the UDI system, and the benefits that can be achieved when products take advantage of new label and direct mark requirements, going beyond regulatory compliance to improve the data used to make clinical and supply chain decisions. UDI is not just a way of identifying devices in the US. The UDI system is intended to provide a single, globally harmonized, positive identification of medical devices through distribution and use. The system involves the use of a globally unique identifier tied to a country-specific UDI public database. The US and EU are the first countries to implement the global system. The US in 2013, as you see here on the right, and the EU, who passed regulations in 2017, but due to COVID and some other delays, will actually be implementing in 2021. The US implementation has led the way for other countries like the EU to improve patient safety and help to optimize patient care by use of this global device identification standard. And you can see here on this slide that some of the other countries like Australia, Brazil, Canada, China, Japan, Russia, Singapore, and South Korea, who all have established regulations and intentions to implement their UDI systems within the global framework. The publication of the UDI rule was preceded by 6 years of planning and preparation to ensure that the benefits of the UDI system would outweigh the risks. The regulatory requirements in the US have rolled out over the last 7 years, starting with the application of UDI to the label of the highest risk devices. At FDA, those are considered Class 3 devices. That happened in 2014. Then the requirements were placed on implants in 2015, and in turn, in 2016, medium-high risk or Class 2 devices were subject to UDI regulations. Finally, in September of this year, 2020, Class 1 and unclassified devices will roll out into the UDI system and be required to have UDIs on the labels of their devices. In terms of non-FDA activities, in 2015, not only was the requirement for UDI to be on implants, but the U.S. Office of National Coordinator for Health IT established a rule that requires EHR vendors to create implantable device lists for patients using UDI as the source of device identification information. At the same time, CMS included UDIs as part of the Common Clinical Data Set for Meaningful Use Stage 3. Just in March of this year, 2020, ONC and CMS showed further commitment to the FDA UDI regulation by providing more information on how to document UDIs for implants and by including UDI in the US core data for interoperability. The EU has joined the US by publishing its own UDI requirements, as I said earlier. Those are found in the 2017 EU Medical Device Regulations. This continues to highlight that UDI is an ongoing, developing global, not national, identifier. The UDI system objectives are fairly straightforward. The intention is to increase the rapid and accurate identification of a device by establishing a system that facilitates the rapid and accurate identification of that device, enables access to important information concerning the device through access to a publicly available database of device identification information, and provides a standard and clear way to document the device for use in electronic health records, clinical information systems, supply chains, and registries. As a result of these objectives and its implementation over the last several years, UDI is enabling the structured capture of device data in these registries in health records to better monitor and improve patient outcomes. To reach these objectives requires a transformation of the healthcare supply chain. Clinical care, how registries are implemented, and interoperability itself. This is not easy work or the responsibility of one group or organization. This slide lists some of the major contributors using UDI to ensure patient safety. We've talked somewhat about the role of FDA establishing the medical device system that includes UDI and doing that in collaboration with other countries. We've also talked about the role of manufacturers who must meet FDA's UDI requirements to apply UDI to the label and also to submit data to a publicly accessible database for standard identification. It is the success of the FDA and manufacturer role that leads to healthcare providers being able to better track and document the use of medical devices, when they can be recalled and returned, how they affect patients, the selection of devices for patient care, and clinical decision-making in general about device use. Healthcare vendors play a role in that they are facilitating the providers in meeting those requirements. They facilitate medical device management, they help in the recording of the UDI in the health records and in registries, and they generally support the healthcare providers to understand the FDA and manufacturer requirements. The center of all of this is patient safety and the role of patients as the receiver of the benefits of this infrastructure that UDI creates. The UDI allows for more informed decision-making by patients about the medical devices implanted inside them. It also helps in them understanding and knowing if a device that is implanted is recalled or has had significant adverse events. And finally, it helps to engage patients in their care because the information from the use of that device and their outcomes can contribute to research that improves the device design and improves patient safety for all in the long run. What is the unique device identifier and what does it look like? The UDI is a string of characters. It's assigned by a manufacturer who follows the format requirements established by an FDA-accredited issuing agency. The UDI is not just a nonsensical string, but a string composed of two parts, the UDI DI and the UDI PI, as shown here. The UDI DI is the device identifier piece of UDI, and the UDI PI is the production identifier piece of the UDI. The UDI DI is static, and it's assigned to a device at the level of model version. The UDI PI can vary. It's based upon how the model version of a device is controlled during manufacturing. For example, is it controlled by its expiration date, by lot, by serial number. Those are the kinds of components of the UDI PI. In the previous slide, I mentioned that the UDI format is established by accredited issuing agencies. These agencies have systems in place to assign UDIs according to specifications established both at the global level and within the requirements of each country that implements UDI. So I have spelled out what each of these acronyms mean. Each of these has their own unique format, and it's based upon ISO standards that ensure global uniqueness. The full specifications for each issuing agency are available in their entirety on the FDA UDI website. FDA has also produced a form and content guidance that goes into detail on this topic. Access Good ID, which is shown here in a screenshot, is funded by the FDA and operated by the National Library of Medicine. It provides a publicly available, searchable database of all medical devices that are complying with the UDI regulation. As of spring of 2020, Access Good ID has over 2.5 million records. Good resource on its own, it's easily searchable and downloadable, but its purpose is really as a reference catalog for FDA-regulated devices. It's not intended to be used by care providers to look up devices as they try to link a UDI to the particular patients. It is to be used within the framework of health IT software that are used by providers in their healthcare systems. The basic idea is to scan the UDI on the label of a device and to link the UDI DI in that UDI to a record in Access Good ID. And that record can then be pulled back separate fields identifying information about that device. Let's talk a little bit more about the UDI DI because it is the most important part of the UDI system. It is the component of the UDI that's associated with the specific model version of the device. There are certain steps that a manufacturer takes to assign that UDI DI as part of the UDI, and those might be of interest to you, so I'll relate them here. First, the manufacturer works with the accredited issuing agency, again using their format guidelines to assign UDI DI to each model version of the manufacturer products. Internally, the manufacturer gathers a set of data elements linked to each UDI DI, things like the brand of the device, its description, its size, packaging levels. In fact, there are 62 fields in Access Good ID that could be populated by the manufacturer. Not all of those are required, but those are available to clearly identify the device. So the manufacturer collects all of that data internally and submits that data to FDA for each assigned UDI DI. It is a regulatory requirement that the manufacturer submit that data to FDA and keep it updated as characteristics of the device change. Both the assignment, application of UDI, and the submission of data to FDA must be completed within days of the product being on the market. And again, as I said, must be updated as the product changes. This is a sample B-Bron label, and I've highlighted here the UDI DI as it's indicated on the label and also as a screenshot of Access Good ID and the record associated with that UDI DI. In this case, this B-Bron product is a replacement cap You can see from Access Good ID a lot of information about this device. It's a single-use device. It's currently in commercial distribution. It's part of a group of devices intended to cover the tip of a syringe. You can see that in the Global Medical Device Nomenclature, or GMDN definition. Looking at the label on the left, there we have marked in green, put a square around the UDI DI that appears under the linear barcode. The data delimiter, parentheses 01, which you can see in the far left of the UDI, appears under the barcode and identifies the 14-digit UDI DI. In this case, it's 40402-249, and so on. When used with a patient, the UDI DI could be recorded manually into the health record. In fact, the full UDI could be manually recorded, but that is not the intention of the UDI system. The intention is to use that barcode and to scan it so that the UDI DI can be pulled out and linked to the data that's in Access Good ID on the right, and that data auto-populate the health record or any other system that is using UDI. I mentioned in the previous slide that the UDI DI is extremely important for device identification, but it really does tell half of the story for inventory control and clinical care, because the UDI PI adds further manufacturing production information about a particular UDI DI. Unlike the UDI DI, the values of UDI PI are not stored in Access Good ID. However, each UDI DI record indicates what kind of UDI PI should appear on the label of the device. As most of you know, lot, serial number, expiration date, and manufacturer date do not appear on each and every label of a medical device. It could be that the lot number appears, or the lot number and expiration date, but it's not required that each of these is available on every label. So what the Access Good ID does is tell you, yes or no, which of these should appear on the label of the device. Now, what's interesting about the UDI PI is even before the UDI regulation, the parts here, the lot number, serial number, and so forth, have appeared on the device label. But as many of you know, they were in graphic form, they were text, and if you wanted to record them, it had to be done manually. The value of UDI now, and having it linked to a scannable machine-readable format, is that it can be automatically scanned, and each of these elements could be put into separate fields in a health IT system. Let's return to the label and the Access Good ID screenshot that we reviewed in slide 10. In this case, we're going to now look at the UDI DI and the UDI PI on that label. Just as with the UDI DI, the UDI PI is embedded in the machine-readable part of the device label and is included in the human-readable format, or the numbers underneath that machine-readable part. So highlighted in green, as a reminder, is the UDI DI, and in gold or yellow are the components of the UDI PI. Now, the reason there's a square over on the left, or a rectangle, is because there is a direct one-to-one correspondence between those graphic symbols of expiration date and lot on this label and what's represented in the human-readable format of the UDI. So as I mentioned, in this case, you could scan that product and have all the information on that label automatically used to populate a health record. While it's not important for you to memorize absolutely everything about the UDI format, we do think that it's important for you to recognize the 3 different issuing agencies here in the US and to understand how prevalent each is in the marketplace. So we start with GS1. GS1, or Global Standards 1, has about 85% of the records in Access Good ID. What this means is that healthcare workers should expect the UDI in GS1 format on most of the labels they encounter. This spreadsheet, so this is an excerpt of a spreadsheet, but this is available at FDA's website and is a good guide for understanding how to read UDI on a label. You should also know that GS1 barcodes may appear as a single line or a linear barcode, a double set of lines there on the right, or a data matrix square under the double set of lines. You also should recognize that GS1 uses the parentheses and a specific number called the data delimiter to separate the parts of the UDI. We've already seen that in our examples. So when you look at a label, for example, if you look at this, any of these representations of UDI on this screen, you should look for the parentheses 01 to find the UDI DI, and the other parentheses data delimiters to locate other parts of UDI. So 01 means the numbers that follow are the UDI DI. 17 means the numbers that follow are expiration date. And 21 is serial number, and so forth. The next prevalent UDI format is Hibic, the Healthcare Industry Business Communication Council's format. A little under 15% of the UDI DIs in Access Good ID use this system, so it is much less prevalent than GS1. Hibic uses strings of special characters and numbers to represent the UDI and is more complex than the GS1 format. And in fact, this again is just an excerpt from the full format of Hibic. Hibic uses data delimiters just like GS1 to separate the UDI DI from the parts of the UDI PI. The important thing to know about Hibic is that the plus indicates the start of the UDI. So as I mentioned, this spreadsheet does not capture all the Hibic data elements. The full list can be found at the FDA website. The least prevalent UDI format in the US is for ICBA. ICBA stands for the International Council for Commonality in Blood Banking Automation. This issuing agency only has representation in 55 UDI DI records in Access Good ID out of a total number of records of 2.5 million. This format is limited to human cell and tissue products and to those manufacturers who chose ICBA versus GS1 or Hibic. The main thing for a user to know here is that if they see an / as part of the characters under the UDI, this manufacturer chose to use ICBA format for their UDI. The good news in all of this is that beyond the recognition of the difference between each format and taking some special time to know the 6 data delimiters used for GS1, the value and benefit of UDI does not depend on all of us memorizing all of the specifications for the formats or manually documenting the UDI DI UDI PI, or full UDI, as shown here. The value comes, again, from relying on scans and scannable applications that parse the UDI for us using these specifications, go out to GoodID, and pull data back to auto-populate fields in our health IT systems. The rollout of the UDI system started with significant effort by global regulators and FDA then implementing with device manufacturers. But as was mentioned earlier, the transformation of healthcare that will realize the original vision and the benefits of UDI requires a UDI adoption village that includes collaboration not only with government agencies and vendors, but also hospital teams and manufacturers working together with distributors and others in the healthcare supply chain and clinical care to overcome challenges and ensure UDI adoption. Ensuring UDI adoption success requires a roadmap of sorts. Where should UDI adopters focus their efforts? What have been the best practices to ensure successful UDI adoption among early adopters and healthcare leaders? It all starts with commitment and ownership, not just from the clinical team, but by all health systems senior leadership. This presentation can be used as a way to educate your leaders on the value of UDI. There also must be efforts to provide feedback once the UDI has been used in your system, feedback on scanning and data issues. Following initial commitment and feedback, there must be ongoing training, not just for those who are scanning the UDI, but for manufacturer representatives, central supply staff, and OR management. All the staff who support the patient medical device experience. Finally, it's not enough to train the manufacturer representatives or others in your organization. UDI offers a way to break down silos within hospitals and between hospitals and medical device manufacturers by offering data that can be shared to improve purchase, product use, device design, and patient outcome decisions. I'm going to end my talk here, and I'm going to hand the presentation over to Joan Melendez of Xcelrate UDI. Joan?
Thank you so much, Terry, for an amazing presentation. I always learn so much from you. It's an honor to be able to do this presentation with you, my mentor, so I really appreciate it. Hello, everyone. My name is Joan Melendez, and I'm the President and CEO of Xcelrate UDI. My background is in healthcare technology and consulting, and for over 20 years, I've had the privilege of working side by side with nurses in operating and procedure rooms to improve patient safety at the point of care. To achieve accurate documentation from use through charging and billing, I have partnered with each healthcare facility's leadership team, including supply chain, OR leadership, C-suite, charge services, risk, and legal, in order to require accurate UDI on all medical devices, and that includes tissue. Additionally, I collaborate with the FDA, ARM, manufacturers, distributors, and vendors in order to impact policy and regulations to promote patient safety on medical devices and implants. Let's now discuss UDI in practice, particularly the methods in place to improve patient safety and some of the challenges that are experienced in hospital supply and procedure rooms every day. So why are we recording the UDI in the health record anyway? We've been doing it for years, but only minimal fields. So the U.S. Office of National Coordination for Health IT, they're the government agency that establishes regulations on EHR vendors and works with CMS to establish incentives to use EHRs to improve patient safety. The ONC has established certification criteria, and we follow CERT on EHR vendors to support and use of data, standards, and interoperability. One of those certification criteria is for UDI to be recorded whenever a patient receives an implantable device. It's called the Implantable Device List. This cert requirement identifies 13 data elements from medical implants that must be documented into the health record upon use. This not only provides the patient with information about items implanted to meet promoting interoperability, but it also drives billing activities and downstream inventory activities. Recording the UDI also prevents the use of expired or recalled items from being implanted. It also notifies the OR members if there are any adverse events registered against the device. As part of the ONC's data standardization effort, they established a set of important core data elements that are required to be captured, stored, and transmitted between various health systems. This is called the U.S. Core Data for Interoperability. The ONC also includes the UDI in the U.S. Core Data for Interoperability. You can find that under the USCDI. This means that if a UDI is available, it must be accessible to patients as part of their healthcare data. This is a huge benefit for patients who traditionally have had little to no access to the detailed information about their implanted devices. UDI policy and standards are leading to innovation that goes beyond compliance and regulations. Remember, the FDA UDI regulations require the manufacturer track the UDI from manufacturing through disposition, so the use or recall or expiration of that item. While the regulatory requirements may be vague for the manufacturers to include UDI details on an implant card in the US, innovative manufacturers are making UDI data available as seen in this international implant card template from the EU. In this example of a patient implant card, it contains the UDI data with both the barcode and human readable formats. This matches the package, and that's what makes the UDI the UDI. It has the matching barcode and human readable format next to each other or near each other. This allows the patient and their caregiver to easily scan the barcode, which can link to product information, instructions for use, and recall data. Unfortunately, not all implant cards follow this format. It is our hopes that implant UDI information will be required on all implant cards going forward. As with any regulatory system, UDI adoption and compliance is not without its fair share of challenges. For example, with on-hand inventory, hospitals are recommended to conduct monthly checks to identify and dispose of expired items, or at least identify items that are about to expire. However, in practice, inventory checks monthly don't always occur. In some cases, inventory checks may be done annually. As a result, potentially expired, recalled, and unapproved items remain on hand, all which have the potential of being implanted or used on patients. Then we have the recall notification process. This is a manual paper process. Recalls are voluntary. It is often disjointed and varies by manufacturers. In all cases, an archaic system of mailing a PDF, which can contain thousands of items if the recall is on, let's say, for example, a product identifier of a lot. Manufacturers may send certain information about the recall directly to a hospital department. They may send it to leadership, and it is rarely in a data-driven format. Manufacturers may have to send several recalls by mail when a lot number, for example, drops off or they miss a particular product. Manufacturers may also send notifications to the FDA, and these notifications will look differently than what you have received from the manufacturer. Oh, and don't forget, you might receive that same recall information from the distributor, depending on how you purchase it. An example of a recent problem with a recall was that a manufacturer recalled a product. It had 3 separate manufacturers on it, or 3 different distributors on the packaging. So there were 3 recalls. It went to the FDA on October 24, 2019, and it was just formally issued by the FDA on May 7th, 2020. So what does this mean for the healthcare facility? It means that the recall information can come in any form, again, multiple pages, pieces of paper that can get sent to one department or another. They have to be manually checked, and this leads to errors and delays. Unfortunately, the use of recalled items in a patient does occur, and unfortunately after the date of a recall. Breakdowns with inventory and recall management make it difficult to prevent an implant of an expired or recalled item at the point of care, putting our patients at greater risk. Now we have manual documentation into the healthcare record. That's very time consuming. And often, if you're doing it correctly, there's 13 required fields. We're used to documenting maybe 3 or 4 manually right now. But the 13 required fields can take 6 to 12 minutes per implant. Manual documentation often includes miskeyed information, missing information. I had a sterile item that didn't have an expiration date. All sterile items have expiration dates. It can have incorrect information added, which impact the accuracy of the patient record. It affects patient billing details. It affects insurance information, and again, our inventory records. Manual documentation currently doesn't reflect the required cert fields, and that can, in the future, affect our CMS claims. While we can assess the impact of recalled or adverse events in implanted devices through legal activity and other publicly available forums, it is difficult to measure the impact of prevented items to understand the leverage where and how often we are successful in preventing activity. A lack of automation, identification, and capture makes it difficult for supply chain leaders, risk and quality leaders, and manufacturers to measure and leverage the preventative measures they have in place. As you can imagine, these challenges are difficult for healthcare providers, manufacturers, distributors, and vendors to mitigate patient safety, which result in higher risks to the patient in our care. But we do not have to simply accept these challenges. Xcelrate UDI has found a way to harness the power of the manufacturer's UDI barcodes to work seamlessly with the FDA's Good ID database, the healthcare system's EHR and ERP, and medical device databases to address these challenges head on. We work with existing workflows and improve workflows in order to eliminate the need to preload manufacturer UDI information in your health records. Simply scan the barcode and let us take care of the rest. Our primary objective is to be the industry's most trusted partner in advancing UDI adoption to improve compliance with medical devices and reduce patient risk at the point of care. We use UDI capture and automation to address the challenges facing healthcare providers and manufacturers every day. With inventory and supply chain challenges, our application helps you digitize your inventory and bill-only process, manage chain of custody, reduce the need for those non-sterile printed worksheets, resulting in real-time data on use and prevention so that quality decisions can be made. With notices, we take the guesswork out of recall, adverse event, and counterfeit items. Using Xcelrate UDI applications and modules, we significantly reduce paper handling, which is especially important during this current pandemic, and make available manufacturer notices instantly, including instructions for use, to your supply chain and patient care teams. We can all agree that prevention of expired, recalled, counterfeit, and unauthorized items is our common goal. Xcelrate UDI enables procedure and operating room teams to implant with confidence, knowing that expired, recalled, or counterfeit items will be identified upon scan and are prevented from being implanted or used. Manual documentation is not only time-consuming, but often leads to incomplete medical device data. It also increases errors that can lead to inaccurate record-keeping, incorrect billing, and significant loss of productivity, and added legal and administrative costs. Xcelrate UDI eliminates the manual entry of implant details into the health record and reduces documentation to less than 8 seconds per implant. Lastly, how is success measured? Our application provides real-time reporting on implant use and preventative activity. Again, in real time. Our reports not only show aggregated data, but enable you to analyze trends and demonstrate ROIs and immediate value. As Terry mentioned on an earlier slide, it takes a village. Xcelrate UDI proudly partners with healthcare providers, vendors, distributors, manufacturers, and even the FDA to present a holistic UDI solution. For healthcare providers, our application does the heavy lifting, simplifying work, eliminating errors, and improving patient safety. With one scan, we capture UDI data, the good ID data, and parse all that into the health record and prevent the use of expired, recalled, or counterfeit items at the point of care and during inventory. We greatly improve the chain of custody from purchasing to use and for clinical support decisions, such as ensuring MR safety, latex safety. We also provide real-time effectiveness reports for hospitals, manufacturers, and even our third-party partners. For vendors and manufacturers, our applications work as a clearinghouse for recalls, adverse, and counterfeit events. This enables additional services prior to and after the point of care. We notify manufacturers when we have a recall that was used. We notify manufacturers when we pull the items that they've recalled. We provide immediate access to notices for procedure rooms, including schedules, ensuring prevention compliance and mitigation of patient risk, and all in real time. We also provide prevention reporting, allowing vendors and manufacturers to assess the impact and effectiveness of their notices. In addition, Xcelrate UDI solution is the only application that is certified by the ONC and fully complies with all CERT requirements. Okay, now let's take a look at a few demos. UDI Verify reads all barcode types from each of the issuing agencies. So there are 3 issuing agencies and 3 barcode formats. Since our barcode scanner reads all barcodes and can read multiple barcodes at the same time, we take the guesswork out of determining which barcode to scan to fully capture the medical device data. We capture the medical device data, remember, from the barcode, the UDI DI, the UDI PI, and we also hit the Access Good ID database and return the information, including the manufacturer, into the record. This first demo, you will see how our application scans a GS1 barcode for 2 different devices. The first device has a 1D barcode. The second device has a 2D barcode. In both scans, we capture, again, the full UDI, the UDI DI and the UDI PI, so the device identifier and production data. We validate that item information against the good ID and parse all UDI data elements directly into the patient's health record. All of this is done in less than 8 seconds per scan. Let's take a look. What happens if there is an incorrectly formatted barcode or a barcode has missing data elements? I hear this all the time. Not all barcodes work. Well, you don't have to worry about that with our application. In this demo, you will see that scanning of a bad barcode where only the UDI from the barcode is captured. The medical device isn't correctly registered with the FDA and validation of the good ID fails. The missing elements can then be manually selected in our application, and then once the nurse hits OK, it parses all that data into the record. These missing data elements also are saved for future scans of the devices with the same barcode. So the next time the nurse scans that barcode, it will automatically parse the information that we have already validated. And then we work with the manufacturer on fixing the barcode. We assume this workflow. The hospital does not. So let's take a look at this. As we all know, unfortunately, some bad implants make their way into our procedure and operating rooms for use during surgery. These may include expired, recalled, adverse events, unauthorized items, and sometimes even counterfeit items. Our application is designed to identify and prevent the use of these items during inventory and even at the point of care, just in time. Once scanned, Xcelrate UDI applications, UDI Verify, presents a physical vibration of the barcode scanner, an audio warning if you have your audio turned on, and a visual warning on the screen. Once a recalled or expired item is identified, the data is not parsed into the patient record, allowing the procedure room staff to select another item to scan, and the prevented item is logged in our feature so that we can go ahead and track to see all items that were used. In this demo, you will see that scan of both an expired item that is both expired and recalled, so that you can see that functionality. Xcelrate UDI bridges the gap to patient safety by leveraging the power of UDI barcodes and the Good ID to simplify staff workflows, reduce patient risk, and enable providers to spend less time keying in data or looking up data and more time providing hands-on quality care that they desire. Our solutions allow our healthcare provider partners to create and maintain digital inventories. We're able to also track the location of tissue or those high-dollar medical devices with RFID to also ensure that chain of custody. Most importantly, we maintain interoperability and regulatory compliances for medical devices and tissue while providing real-time analytics to ensure accuracy in data. Xcelrate UDI provides real-time data to enable supply chain analytics, chain of custody decisions, risk and quality compliance assessments, and preventions at the point of care. With Xcelrate UDI, healthcare provider vendors, manufacturers, distributors have access to patient implants and safety data never captured before. It is important to note that Xcelrate UDI does not capture PHI, so there's no risk of HIPAA violations or privacy concerns. Our dashboards and reports provide data about the medical device and the barcode scanned, which are used and prevented from use at the point of care, associating that with the case. Thank you again for spending your time with us today. As a special incentive, we are offering a 30-day risk-free trial of Xcelrate UDI for both healthcare providers and manufacturers. For healthcare providers, you get access to our full suite of UDI modules. Again, they streamline your workflow. We digitally track chain of custody. We prevent the use of recalled and expired items at the point of care. We also help with the bad barcode management, all while providing improved documentation and billing of your medical devices that are used on your patients. For vendors and manufacturers, you get access to UDI Clearinghouse. We take the guesswork out of wondering if your notifications are having an impact at the point of care. We also will take your submissions and submit to the FDA on your behalf of any of the recalled items so that you don't have to manage all that. We ensure that the UDI and the UDI DI and the UDI PI, the product identifiers you identified in a recall, are able to be scanned at the point of care. We deliver those notifications again in real time. There's no waiting. There's no paper going out in real time. The minute you say that that item is recalled, it is uploaded for the hospital to go ahead and take advantage and prevent the use of an expired item in a patient. Again, thank you so much. Let's go ahead and ask a few questions. Before we conclude today's webinar, we do have time for a few questions. The first question, what happens if a barcode cannot be read? Well, included with subscriptions, Xcelrate UDI provides support and research and communication with the manufacturers about any bad barcodes. The nurses in the rooms can also right-click on our app and simply hit OK, which will send their last scan to us immediately so we can start working on those. The next question, does the application require integration with EHRs to work? No. The beauty of our application is we sit on top of EHRs and ERPs. We act as a bridge. We document into the appropriate fields by using a script that we design that matches the documentation. What kind of equipment is required? Well, we require a medical grade barcode scanner. And we use Zebra scanners, the 4308. We let you decide whether you want it tethered or not. They both have hands-free modules. We like the tethered one because you don't have to worry about batteries. You don't have to worry about it walking away. And we provide the scanners at no cost. It's part of our fee with our subscription. Okay, what kind of training is required for the staff? Believe it or not, for the application, there's really minimal training. However, there is a lot of training about UDI. So we spend most of our time, about an hour, for training staff. And it's primarily, again, how to read the barcodes. And then we do train the staff for IT, et cetera, the technical staff as part of our implementation. Training for our end users are also provided as part of our implementation. How many other hospitals are using this application? Well, Xcelrate UDI is used right now by more than 450 procedure rooms across the US. Does Xcelrate UDI work with the FDA or European Commission? Yes, we definitely do. I'm actively participating on several learning communities, working directly with the FDA, along with our Chief UDI Advancement Officer. We are looking at working with the WHO, the EU. We currently work with LUC, which is a Learning UDI Community, ARM, which is the Association for Healthcare Resource and Materials Management, which is sponsored or owned by the American Hospital Association. And again, do we offer free trials? Yes, we do. We offer a 30-day pilot. Just give us a call and we'll be more than happy to help you out with that. Again, Terry and I would like to thank you all so much for attending our webinar today. We are thrilled that you've taken an interest to learn more about UDI and a solution that can alleviate significant pain points for healthcare providers and manufacturers. If you'd like to learn more about how to get started with Xcelrate UDI subscription, again, please email us at info@xcelrateudi.com. Again, thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have an amazing day. Take care.